This is Bishop Anderson Luther of the Hollywood Full Gospel Baptist Cathedral and the Queen's Ministry of New York City, as well as a principal in the Luther Life Coaches firm. And I am joined tonight by our facilitator, Rosalyn Lewter Aaron. And this is the second of our 6-week series on grief management. Beloved, would you join me for a word of prayer? Oh Lord our God, we are indeed thankful and ever grateful for this opportunity, even this privilege, to assemble ourselves in this most holy place to access that which you have prepared for us. Now give us clarity of thought, articulation of speech, and focus of mind, that we might receive what you have scheduled for our hearing and even our experience. Now use us in a way that is pleasing in your sight, so that all that we do proves to be pleasing again in your sight. Amen. And with that said, beloved, I am delighted to turn you over into the hands of our facilitator. This is the second of a 6-week series, and that is Rosalyn Lewter Aaron. Sister Aaron, we're in your hands.
God bless you, Bishop. Thank you so much. And as my protocol has been in the last series and this one going forward, I'm not quite going to share my screen just yet. I'm going to do a brief introduction, and then we will proceed from there. And you'll hear me mention in the introduction, for those that are joining us for the first time, we would ask that you share your name, the name of your lost loved one, their relationship to you, as well as how and when they passed away. So give me just a moment and we are going to begin. So greetings and welcome, my brothers and sisters. As you reflect on why you are here, one of the benefits of this intimate setting is that it allows all of us to share with each other without making each other feel uncomfortable. For those of you joining with us for the first time, following the introduction, if you will be kind enough to share with us your name, the name of your deceased loved one, what their relationship was to you, and the circumstances of their passing, that would be most appreciated. Now, although the feelings, emotions, and experiences are unique to everyone, everyone here understands and can identify with your pain and your sorrow. As I indicated last week, everyone's grief journey and pathway to healing is unlike anyone else's. Last week, we identified the 5 most common stages of grief: denial, guilt, anger, depression, and acceptance. We began with denial because it is the only stage among the 5 that comes in any practical degree of predictability. This week, we're going to explore and ask you to weigh in on another stage of grief, and that is anger. It is important to see and note that anger can be connected to guilt. But let's examine the ways in which anger itself is manifested in your experiences. Grady Memorial Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. The staff, permit me to say, were amazing. They were patient, helpful, informative. They were just all around wonderful, save one. And I actually referenced her as a real all the way live Nurse Ratched. It was as though she was deliberately trying to bait me into a confrontation on the phone. We're in a pandemic. I wasn't even permitted to go to the hospital, but it was a confrontation that I assure you was not going to happen. They had my boo, and I could not afford to or dare say or do anything amiss that could remotely result in him being mistreated. The day after his garden memorial, I was admitted into the hospital. And after having surgery and being discharged after a 10-day stay, I will say that months later, just the thought that Nurse Ratched could have been on duty the night my beloved drew his final breath, and I don't know that she was, but it made me angry. Months later, listening to the numbers of my fellow citizens perishing at the hands of COVID-19. Those numbers, well, what if a person died from a heart attack, cancer, diabetes, or complications of a stroke, like my beloved? What? They don't matter? They don't count? Why were they not reflected in those numbers? Permit me to say, a number of you all are more than justified in your feelings of anger. Our precious bishop who lost his daughter to violence. Another one of our sisters whose mother passed away because of neglect at the place where she was staying. My anger, however, was neither logical nor true. He mattered to me. He certainly mattered to God. And now he was no longer in pain. But I had to intentionally, mentally, and realistically unpack it in order to get on the pathway to healing. Most things that call into question our control over a situation or matter can lead one to a feeling of personal loss of that control. And that can lead to frustration and ultimately anger. So let's walk with Jesus as he finally arrives in Bethany at the home of Lazarus, Mary, and Martha. The Gospel of John, chapter 11:33, in the New Living Translation puts it like this: when Jesus saw her weeping and saw the others wailing who were with her, a deep anger welled up, and he was deeply troubled. Where have you laid him? He said. You can only begin on the pathway to healing when you have determined that what you are experiencing is normal. And when you are willing to unpack it, as in John 32, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Following bishops inviting those of you who have not had an opportunity to share your name and the name of your loved one and the circumstances of their passing, join me as I seek to set a mood as we continue on this twofold expedition on the grief journey and the pathway to healing. Bishop?
Thank you very much, Sister Aaron. And we're going to invite those of you who have not yet had opportunity to share with us in the particular way that Sister Aaron has outlined for us this evening to do so. Let me interrupt, however. There is a 718-868-3229. If you would share exactly who that is so that I can rename you and make it just a little easier for Sister Aaron to identify all of us tonight. 718-868. Who might that be?
Bishop, that's Deaconess Strand, but I'm only listening because I have so many people that have passed. I just can't choose one.
Okay, sure.
So I'd just rather listen if I might. And my hearing is not the best. Thank you.
God bless you. So good hearing you tonight.
Friend.
That's a member of our Queen's ministry. God bless you. All righty.
Thank you.
So let's see.
Bishop?
Yes.
I can identify perhaps a number of individuals that are joining us for the first time.
Perfect.
I would say Sister Grace, if you would be kind enough to be the first to share with us that information. You're on mute.
You're on mute.
At the bottom there, thank you.
Good morning for 5 different people I've lost. The first one, and they're different relationships. My mother passed away May 18th, now I'm getting the years mixed up, 2018. I'm trying to think, it was the first year of the pandemic because the years blend in. Before the pandemic. And then I lost 3 contemporary friends and then my brother this past year, and he's the first one of our siblings to pass on. So he's missed dearly, and it's real fresh. I don't know what I can say about him, about the situation.
Yes.
Right now, I'm at the stage now where I'm missing these people who were a big part of my life and who I shared a lot of things with, and a lot of events and feelings and each other's friends. So I'm mainly missing those. Two of us who used to be with one of the friends were together for a museum exhibit a few days ago.
Mm.
And we had been talking about also going to the botanical gardens, because this circle of friends we were retired women who made trips together. And we said if she was still alive, she would have organized this for us and we would have been there by now.
Yeah.
You know, that type of thing. So it's missing that I'm feeling mostly now, missing them.
Yes. God bless you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Let's also ask Ms. Reynolds, if you'll be kind enough to come off mute and share with us who your deceased loved one is, when and how they passed away.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I have quite a few people, and how I handled them was definitely different. The first started with my mom as a child, and then my father as a young adult, and just recently my grandmother, which was my mother's mother. So losing them and being so closely connected with them was very traumatic. It's almost like a PTSD type thing, because I didn't know how to handle it. One, as a child. Two, as I became older, still didn't know how to handle it. Finding my father deceased was another traumatic situation. And then watching my grandmother go slowly. And then having to deal with that. So the loss of my grandmother, which was just past November, brings back a lot of, mourning that I really didn't have the opportunity to go through, because being the oldest of a sibling and, you know, still trying to deal and understand things, it's really hard. I go past her house every day. I see her house every day because my aunt still lives there. So it's a lot to still swallow. It's like a great part of me is missing, because she was the matriarch of the family. And all, you know, with losing my mom and now her, it's like, where's that womanly connection as I get older to get that wisdom? Is almost like the wisdom tree. You know,
bless you.
Where's the wisdom tree for me? I will admit I am related to Grace Minter. So with her mentioning Aunt Lillian and family down the line, and her brother, which was my cousin, you know, a lot of that is a lot where you're trying to deal with family that is close knit, but you know, how do you handle it when it's even in your own back door? So again, living life, you have to do it because they wouldn't want it any other way. But how do you, since a child, still mourn? And
Absolutely.
Again, so it takes, I really hadn't had the opportunity to mourn my grandmother, because I just try to go day by day, one day at a time.
God bless you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And just so that you know, when we get to depression, we're actually going to address the PTSD. Sister K, if you'll be kind enough to come off mute and share with us briefly what you did earlier. And then after Sister K, I'm going to ask Sister Lynette, if you will be kind enough to share with us. Sister K?
Hi, I'm Kay Hutchinson, and my mom is my mom. My mom died on January 3rd, and it took 2 months for her to be buried. So it felt like my soul was being ripped out because of the days of weeks, the uncertainty of not knowing when she would be buried. And then the other uncertainty that was, she's in Barbados, I'm here in the US. And so I'm still very torn because my dad is already passed on and my mom was my everything. And so, you know,
God bless you.
died of basically diabetes complications that turned septic. What was so hard for me is that Friday, I'll never forget it. She was so excited to go home, but little do I know that she was going home because they could no longer do anything more for her. And so I got that call on that Monday. It was the worst time of my life, and I'm still trying to process. I'm still upset. I still feel like I failed her in a lot of ways.
Yes.
You know, so
Thank you so much for sharing it.
you're welcome.
Again, Sister Lynette and then Bishop Peggy, I'm going to ask if you would follow Miss Lynette, Sister Lynette, if you'd be so
Yeah.
kind.
I had 3 siblings and myself. My mother died in October of 2003. And me being the youngest, still had to plan the funeral and do everything and pay for the funeral and everything else. In 2017, my niece died, and within the month, her mother died, who was my sister. And then in March of 2017, my sister, who was the closest to me, she passed on, and her death was very quick because she went in the hospital and within 5 days she had passed on.
My Lord.
And then last October of 2020, my last sister died. And I am feeling very alone in life.
Mhm.
Beside other, family members dying, and like my godmother died 2 months ago. But it's just like I'm just very alone. And so I need some type of help to get me over this extreme depression.
God bless you. Yeah, thank you so very much for sharing that and being so transparent, because it can clearly be overwhelming. It can be overwhelming, just the numbers, but know that you're not alone. You have all of us, but you got God. Bishop Peggy, if you would be so kind.
Okay, I'm Bishop Peggy. The name of my loved one is Cheryl Glaze, and she's been dead about 10 months. And I think what troubled me about it was Cheryl knew she had poor health. And I would pray with her about, some things she shouldn't be doing, like excessive drinking and whatever, things she could have done so that she would still be here. Well, as it was, she lived her own life. And when she died, her children didn't seem to carry forth her burial as they should have. They wouldn't take advice from the older ones in the family. And somehow, between her not taking care of herself and her children, not doing what they should have done, I guess that upset me quite a bit. But the thing, and the worst part of it is, we had been losing young members of the family since 2018. 37, and one of the kids in our family was just 22 in Florida. He was a student in Florida, and it was just already that buildup of losing the younger people, and you losing friends I'd grown up with. So by the time we got to Cheryl, it really has worked on me, because I keep saying, if I had talked to her more, maybe she wouldn't have drank so much. If I'd done all these different things, knowing that I'd been talking to her for years and it didn't really matter.
God bless you, Bishop. Thank you so very much for sharing that. Thank you all for being so transparent and talking about it, because over these next couple of weeks, one of the things that you will realize is that by talking about it, it makes it real. It will help you to move forward as we get to different aspects and even to the sixth session. Bishop, that's it for the individuals who.
Excuse me, Sister Aaron, did you get
Yes.
Bishop Edwards, Bishop Lorenzo Edwards? Did we
Yes,
get him?
last week.
Last week? Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
everyone else. Now, if I missed anyone, please say so, but I believe that we have everyone that's in this group that has shared with us.
Okay,
So,
good.
Bishop, if you would be kind enough to share your screen.
Sure.
People are dying, and people are crying for a savior to come and save us from this world. Now, God, I'm calling your name, 'cause my world does need change. In Jesus' name. So, God, we need you to pull us through.
So permit me, my brothers and sisters, to revisit briefly the first stage that we addressed on last week. And this is the only stage of grief in any predictable order. It is the first reaction to the loss of a loved one, and that is the denial. In this stage, individuals believe that the diagnosis is somehow mistaken because there is a clinging to a false, more preferable reality. And the thing of it is that it is normal. So this week, we are actually going to begin to look at anger. And as I indicated in the introduction, anger is connected to guilt, but we're going to deal with anger in and of itself first this week. And then we will look at the guilt on next week because they are indeed connected. So now what we want to do is take a look at the anger in grief, because when the individual recognizes that denial cannot continue, they become frustrated, especially at proximate individuals, those who are the closest to them, their family, their friends, their neighbors, their colleagues, because there's a certain psychological response of a person undergoing this phase. And that would be something like, why me? It's not fair. How can this happen to me? Who is to blame? And why did this happen? It's anger, and it is normal. So why am I so angry? The next couple of slides that we look at are going to give some examples as to why we are angry, separate and in itself from the guilt that we will deal with next week. After the loss of a loved one, you will notice that the rest of the world is moving around like nothing has happened. People are going to work, they're going to school, shopping and playing like everything is normal. But for you, it is anything but normal. So allow me to begin by acknowledging why grief obliterates, it erases any sense of normalcy, routine, or regularity, and how the pressure to appear normal can affect the way you grieve. But this anger that we're going to talk about is very normal. Let's look at the normalcy interrupted. Normalcy interrupted because persons who are grieving have to recognize and acknowledge that their entire person, their total being has been impacted. People who are grieving do some very strange things. A fairly disciplined or highly organized person may find that things they do routinely can be interrupted. Things like going to your car and you can't find your keys. And some people say, oh, well, I do that all the time, but I assure you this is quite different. Or completing a fairly repetitive project at work, only for it to be returned to you, littered with errors and mistakes that you've never made in the past. Here is where I must issue a serious warning, because as fond as our boss may be of us, our coworkers may be of us, this is a warning because when it continues to happen, it has been known that it may very well result in one losing their job. So let's take a look at the forgetfulness. After all of the preparation for this final event, the funeral home, the insurance, the time, the energy, the resources, everything that goes into planning this final event, and completely forgetting everything that followed their passing, the memorial or the homegoing service. You go into a familiar restaurant and you don't know what to wear. And then you get there, you've been there a dozen times. You're looking at the menu as though you've never seen it before, and you can't figure out what to order. Then there's an inability to concentrate. And this is why when you're grieving, you are so strongly encouraged to be extremely careful before you get behind the wheel of a car, because it can result in an accident or even getting a ticket. So let me ask a question. Have you ever been driving and can't remember the last 10 blocks? It's like that. As we look at this lack of focus, things that you have been doing for years, or perhaps you just began because you have a little one, a new one, and you're just doing this, but your ability to focus changes. You go to the school to pick up your child and you're on the carpool line. And then eventually you pull up to the loading area and your mind is 1,000 miles away. You sit there for a few moments and then you just casually pull off, only to realize that your precious cargo is not in the car. A student after a school shooting, acknowledging that before the shooting, they knew all of the material that was going to be on the test that was scheduled for the following day. But afterwards, it was as though they had never seen the information before. So the student asked themselves, what has happened to my brain? It's like it all just got wiped away. How do we connect this to the anger? The very thought of your precious baby, your child, your precious cargo, if you will, and you forgetting, not being focused to actually have them in the car with you, makes you angry with yourself. Yes, and that can be connected to guilt. Then there's also the anger that you have to now get on the end of that carpool line. Think of the student. They studied and prepared for the exam. And now they can't remember a thing that is on it. That too can lead to anger. And then there's some individuals, for some, it is not comforting at all to accept the idea that it is normal for grief to be a painful experience. Their response may be that they don't care that it's normal because they feel that it's not helping them and they just want it to go away. I just want to get on with it. Then you ask yourself, well, people think that my faith is not real because of my grief? Meaning no harm, some may urge you to be strong, gird up. I'll never forget, a lady called me the day after my beloved passed away. And I was telling her about my last conversation with my husband. She said, oh no, Rosalyn, Sister Rosalyn, you don't want to talk about that. You need to move forward for that and leave that alone so that you can move forward. And the first thing that came to my mind was, I thought you called to comfort me. I need to say this. They don't mean any harm. They just don't know any better. Some people's best friends will not call them for months because they don't know what to say. Others may esteem you for not crying or openly grieving. And this is why it is important to understand that grieving is a totally consuming experience. Here is a proper response to loss. There were good and honorable reasons that you hurt so deeply and for so long. Grief is a celebration of a good gift from God through our tears. Oh, beloved, resist suppressing your grief, because suppressing your grief is like putting your emotions into a container that has limited capacity. So you're putting your feelings and emotions in a jar and you're pushing it down further and further. And you eventually want to seek to bury them. But here's the thing about feelings and emotions. They're alive. So what you're seeking to bury is alive, and you're seeking to bury them alive. And eventually they will be resurrected, but you will not have control over your emotions. They will emerge at inappropriate times when you overwork yourself because you just don't want to deal with it and absolutely do not want to talk about it. Over time, when they overflow, you will be impatient, irritable, and intolerant. You'll find yourself fussing and complaining and whining all of the time because there is an underlying anger with everything that is going on at that point. Before, you were not connecting that your reactions were because you were blocking the feelings of grief. As you release the emotions, you become more relaxed, thus less irritable. Many people incorrectly assume that it is normal to move through different stages of grief in a sequential way. However, many who have experienced going through grief will assure you that there is nothing predictable or orderly about the grief journey. Release it, talk it out, and relax. As we go a little further, you are encouraged to do the right thing. When I speak to families that have not yet had the final event, I urge them to do three things: drink water, to move, and to rest. Grief and suffering can immobilize you. It can shut you down. It can be something as simple as getting a glass of water to avoid becoming dehydrated, taking a shower so that you're not offensive to others, brushing your teeth, things that you have been doing forever. Now, where you are is a good place and a safe space. Commit to a bereavement support group and stick with it, where you can talk freely about your grief without feeling like you're causing other people to be uncomfortable. My amazing pastor, who really has her finger on the pulse of her flock, when my beloved passed away, she said, Sister Rosalyn, she said, I didn't see your name on the bereavement list. I signed up immediately, and the first thing they talked about was, what is something you used to do that you no longer do since your loved one has passed away? And as I thought about it, I said, I love to laugh. I love to laugh. I love to see others laugh. There was a time I wanted to be a comedian, but I knew that all my material was coming from my family, and I didn't think they'd appreciate being put on blast like that. So I abandoned that idea and became a youth leadership motivational speaker. But it is hard to imagine of another way to find healing without a bereavement or grief support system or group. It's hard to fathom dealing with the trauma. Yes, the trauma, because that's exactly what it is. In solitude, flying solo, all by yourself, on your own, with just a few books and a few videos. By being in this kind of environment, the experience can be liberating. Hallelujah. Breakthrough. When you feel like you can make it just one more day, another week, another month, you begin to notice that the seasons are changing. There will be little ounces of joy. You will smile or laugh, and you won't realize it at the time, but when you do, you'll say, I just smiled, or I laughed, and it felt good. The Bible says that there is a time to mourn, and it will hurt. You'll experience pain, and it will hurt for a long time, but it won't hurt forever. It won't hurt with the same intensity that you've experienced or may still be experiencing right now, because, beloved, it will get better. So as we come to a close, let's talk about how to pen a grief letter, because the truth is that our family and friends really want what's best for us and you during this difficult time. However, when they are unclear about your specific needs, it may result in a more painful outcome. It's the day after the homecoming, and a best friend comes over, and they commence to emptying the drawers. They have a lot of boxes, and going to the closet, taking things out, and then they're at, what are you doing? What's that? You need to move on. These things need to go. It's going to make it harder for you to be able to move on. That's not their call. That is your call. So consider communicating with them the old-fashioned way by penning a letter. And by all means, use the platform that is most comfortable for you. It might be a short text. It might be an email. You might want to write a letter or type a letter and print it out, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, put a message in a bottle. When those who are close to you know your needs, they can provide the help that is the best fit for you. What are some of the things that you can share with them? Briefly share your experience, what I was trying to do with my friend, your experience and your feelings. Let people know that what they can anticipate from you. You might not return phone calls. You might not return texts or emails. You're still trying to wrap your head around the trauma that you are now dealing with. Let them know if they come and visit you, you may have very little to say, or you may say nothing at all. Share with them what they can do and speak, articulate that which you would find encouraging and consoling. It might be some of your favorite music. It might be going to a movie. It might be having someone to just sit with you while you cry, or just sit with you in silence and hold your hand and reassure you that you're not alone. And then finally, list precise, specific, and practical essentials that they can help you with. Can you wash a load of laundry for me, or cook me a meal? I really need to get out of the house. Can you take me down to the corner store? Share with them practical essentials that they can help you with. This is it for the PowerPoint for this week. And of course, you will always get this personal checkup, track your healing progress. So you are encouraged to pick one, and I did indicate this last week, out of emotionally, physically, spiritually, or relationally, and say how you are doing. Are you doing really bad, okay, pretty good, or great? Before we do this exercise, however, I am going to ask Bishop if he would be kind enough to invite you all to share with us your feelings of anger. And we will come to you as we see that you are no longer muted. Bishop?
Sure. Let's begin with Angela. Is that Angela Gillespie?
Yes.
Okay.
Sister Angela, if you want to come off mute and share any feelings of guilt that you may have experienced. You're muted again.
Okay, I'm sorry you can't see me. I'm in the car.
You're fine.
I have anger, issues about my mother. I feel like I should have had more time with her, and I feel like I was cheated because she was cheated of time with her because she died at someone else's hands, if you will. So I do still have a bit of anger about that.
Understandably so. Thank you so much for sharing.
All right, let's go to Bishop Edwards.
Hello, everyone. Last week I shared that I was feeling lost, which, in other words, emotional. My emotion was all over the place, and definitely I dealt with anger. And because when I dealt with anger, I had a lot of evidence on who was the culprits of murdering my daughter, and I took that information to the detectives, and it seemed like nothing was done about it. And that made me very angry and very revengeful. I really wanted to revenge her death because I knew, who had done it and who was a part of that situation. And so I felt very angry. I felt angry towards the detective. I felt very angry about the ones in the community because it was like 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning and nobody seemed to see anything. And then, like, a year and a half later, the neighbor, she kind of confessed that she had seen a blue Camaro, a blue car. But by that time, it seemed like the detective just gave up. They have a lot of murders in Indianapolis, Indiana, and before they can solve one, it's like another one's happening. And so I think that I checked their percentage on closing murder rate is like, they close like 3% of murder rates. And so it's that bad. And so nothing seems to be getting done. And so I felt very, very angry. And like I said, very, very revengeful to go after the people that murdered my daughter, especially in that manner the way she died. Yeah. So I definitely felt the anger.
Thank you for that transparency. And I understand the anger is
Yeah.
justifiably so.
Mhm.
Bishop Peggy.
I don't know if I really felt that much anger when my cousin died. It's just, I think I felt more loneliness than anger. The only part of it I can see as anger is I don't like the way her children handled her going away service.
Thank you. Thank
Good.
you.
Good. Let's move to Ginger.
And come off mute, Sister Ginger. Thank you.
Okay, last week I said I felt emotionally pretty good. And this week I think I still feel emotionally, but I think it may be anger because, as I said last week, my husband always said he was gonna go before me. And it actually, that's what happened. And we flew together, we drove together. He drove me to all my conferences, everything. And I always said, no, if we go, we'll probably go together. And he hated flying. And then here he got sick and 4 months later he was gone. So I think maybe I feel angry at him about being right, which is why I'm holding on so much to his passing, and it's been so long.
God bless you. Yes. Thank you so much, Sister Ginger. Bishop?
Mr. Minter.
Yeah, I just want to say I didn't expect to get something that would ring a bell and say, aha, from the very first class, but you hit something on the head that I hadn't even connected. The forgetfulness and absent-mindedness and distraction, because 3 times over maybe a couple of months or 3 months, I over flooded the sink in my bathroom. I start the water running with the stopper in, and then I'd say, oh, let me go get my other glasses or put the glass in the bedroom. I come back and water's all over the floor. The last time it flooded so bad, it came into the kitchen area. but I started to be more present and just do one thing at a time after that, because I didn't know where that was coming from. That hadn't happened to me before. It happened 3 times.
Mhm.
So I guess 3 is enough. But it
Yes,
came
ma'am.
out of this lesson. So I'm so glad I tuned in today, even though I missed last week, because that was very important to me. And I'll not blame myself at going senile already.
Amen.
So
Let's
thank
move.
you.
Let's move to Sister Lynette.
I'm not really angry about the passing of my siblings and my mother. I'm more depressed because I never thought that I would be the last one here. So I'm not really angry, but I can relate to the distraction, because I have that a lot of times, especially driving. And now I know might be where it's coming from the depression or from the grief. So I learned that tonight also. Um, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. God bless you, Bishop.
All righty, all right. Sister Hicks.
Hello.
Mhm.
Um, I think this week emotionally I've been good. And anger, I don't know that I've experienced any anger. I do concur with the others who have mentioned foggy brain. I think that a lot of getting over it, you just kind of go into autopilot and you start getting things done and worrying about what everybody else needs. And, so you just get into this mode of going, going, going. And then, you start wondering, like, did I do that? Because you can't remember because you're doing so much to fill the time. So I had to stop and just start writing a list and slowing it down and being in the moment. But anger towards what's happened, I don't think that I've felt angry at anyone. I felt like the doctors were very communicative. I felt like they tried their best, and
Yes.
Thank you for
It is.
that.
Yes, God
Sister
bless you.
Kay.
Thank you so much.
For me, I'm very emotional. I feel abandoned. I feel like I failed my mother, even although I did everything humanly possible for her, from the purchasing to the care to the everything. And I just feel a very deep hurt because there's other things that I probably don't have enough time to talk about family-wise that transpired. So I was shut out a lot. I was shut out even in the end of my mother's life and her memorial. So I'm dealing with that. So maybe there might be some anger that I'm not, associating with, but now that I'm talking about it, maybe I feel some type of anger and hurt, so.
Yes, ma'am.
But I don't know how long or if I'm ever going to get any relief from it. So here I am. I miss my mom
God
very much.
bless you.
Yeah.
Of course. Of course. Bishop.
Sister Reynolds.
I can say I'm no longer angry. I was angry when the loss of my parents many years ago, and that took many, many years. And I think with my grandmother, I'm more numb to it, so not to go back into that space of anger, loneliness, and depression. So I'm still trying to receive it, accept it. I know it's happened. And I also feel that I wasn't quite ready. So although prepared, still wasn't ready. So there's still a disconnect with it.
Yes.
And we'll close out with Sister Sadell.
Yes. My anger, I'm hurt more, but my anger is in the miscommunication of when my sister said to me, how come you didn't call? And I told her I did call. And her daughter says to me, and I speak to her as though I didn't know what the situation was. And they're all angry at me for not calling, but no one called to even tell me my sister was in the hospital. That's my anger. I've accepted that, yes, she was sick. She had a lot of ailments going on and death happens. But I'm hurt because I didn't get that chance to tell her I didn't. I didn't get that chance to tell her I loved her or to know that she really loved me.
Yeah. And then I'll just conclude with this, Deaconess Fran. We know that you're primarily listening tonight, but I do want to acknowledge your presence and certainly make us all aware that you're here and a part of this conversation. Sister Aaron, we're back in your hands.
Well, Bishop, Bishop, everyone is going to receive the video from tonight, the entire session.
Yes.
But Elder Singster just joined us, Bishop-elect's daughter.
Yes.
Yes, she just joined us. We're on Eastern time. That might be the reason. If you would be kind enough, Elder, to come off mute. What we talked about, what the lesson was this week, we talked about anger. So perhaps you can weigh in on any feelings that you may have in that regard after telling us your name, the name of your deceased loved one, and how they passed. Elder, thank you, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Elder Monica Sainster, and the person who I lost in my life was my dad. We were very close to each other. It's going on, it'll be 3 years, July 14th. He was 80, he would have been like 82 years old. And I have different emotions. Some days I'm good, some days I'm not. I was angry when we found out, and we had to rush to Des Moines because everything was going through my mind, like who was there with him? Did somebody do something to him? Because we had talked to each other the day before, and I call him my Superman. And so I will always say, don't let the kryptonite get you, Dad. You're going to be good. You're going to be back at the house. And he was in the therapy stage in Des Moines. So everything was good. He went to therapy. My mom was up there. And then Sunday morning, I get a call at 7:10, and my mom said, we have to go because they said he's not breathing well. And so I was frantic. And then I was like, oh, looking around, trying to grab clothes. And this was on Sunday. And then about 10 minutes after I'm getting my clothes together, my mom called back and said, he's gone. And I about lost it. Mm-hmm. And my kids was there with me. And my oldest came and they had to drive me to go pick up my second oldest. And all of us met at the house, but I was just angry I was just thinking like who was there, because it had been some issues with, my mom and I both, we were particular about who's around my dad, because everybody doesn't believe in God and everybody doesn't believe in miracles. And my mom was particular about who should be around my dad, and, they're speaking life and not death around him. And because he was older, they say, oh, he's 80, he done lived his life. And my mom was like, we believe in, long term, and we believe in this and that. So that was my angry point. And I did watch the video from last time, and I have up and down emotions. I do seek God in everything, because some days I'm numb. It's like, what is going on with me today? I'm just going through the motions. Me being a part of the Eagle Institute has helped a lot in the classes and stuff because I'm focused on the word and focused on him. So that's the big part. And so one thing he said before, my dad, the day before when I talked to him, he said, hey, Pooh, he called me Pooh. And he said, how you doing? I said, I'm doing fine. How you doing? He said, I'm all right. And then I said, you're gonna be coming home, Superman. And he said, he had never said this before, and I guess it was to prepare me. He said, I'm God's Superman. He said, remember that. And so that gave me a little peace and closure. So, yeah.
God bless you. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was priceless.
Thank you.
And
my time is wrong because I didn't know. I get off of work at 7 and I was rushing. So I know now that it's 6 o'clock.
your time. That's why I put that EST there, but that's okay. You're fine. You
Okay.
got the one from last week. You will get the one for the rest of this, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Bishop,
Okay.
you're muted.
Well, listen, friends, that takes up just about all of our time, and we certainly want to thank you for yours. I want to thank Sister Aaron for this wonderful session tonight. And more importantly, I want to thank you for your input and for your participation. That's what makes it so very, very important and so very, very vital and valuable. Listen, we're looking forward to seeing you next week. Until next time, do know God loves you. We love you. We look forward to seeing you soon. So go in peace, go in joy, go in love, and go in happiness, for the author of peace, love, joy, and happiness goes with you. God bless and good night.